This lesson will review fractions, percentages, and ratios, lesson 5.2a. So on the right side, you have a bar model, and then you want to illustrate what it would be as a fraction, decimal, and percent. So in part A, since the entire bar model is shaded in, that means one whole is shaded in. So as a fraction, that would just be 1 out of 1 or 1 whole. As a decimal, since the entire bar model is shaded in, that would be 1.0. And as a percent, since the entire bar model is shaded in, that means it's 100% of the bar model. Letter B, you have half of the bar model shaded in. So 1 out of the 2 pieces that it's been cut into is shaded in. So what fraction is shaded in? That would be 1 out of the 2 pieces, or 1/2. As a decimal, half of your bar model would be 0.50. And if only half of the bar model is shaded in, that would be 50%. Okay, so in letter C, notice how only 1 out of the 4 pieces are shaded in, so the fraction that's shaded in would be 1 out of 4. As a decimal, 1 out of 4, you can use what we learned in the last lesson and divide the numerator by the denominator. So 4 doesn't go into 1 evenly, so you add a decimal point, add a 0. 4 goes into 10 twice. Remainder of 2. Add another 0, bring it down. 4 goes into 25 times. So that means you would get 0.25. So a quarter of the bar model shaded in, 0.25. As a percent, you can move the decimal 2 places to the right and get 25%. Okay. Letter D. Notice how 1 out of the 3 pieces that you have are shaded in. So this would be 1 out of 3. To convert that into a decimal, you can divide the numerator by the denominator. So divide 1 by 3. 3 doesn't go into 1 evenly, so you add a decimal point, add a 0. 3 goes into 10 3 times. Remainder of 1. 3 goes into 10 3 times again. Remainder of 1. You can keep adding zeros and notice how it's just going to keep repeating. So 0.3 repeating is equivalent to 1/3. Now, to convert 0.3 repeating into a percent, you can write out a couple of 3's and move the decimal 2 places to the right, so you get 33.3. Notice how the 3's still keep going, so this would be 33.3 repeating percent. Letter E, you have 1 out of 5 pieces shaded in, so your fraction would be 1/5. 1/5 as a decimal, you can divide 1 by 5. I'm going to do this on the side. 5 doesn't go to 1 evenly, so you add a decimal point, add a 0. 5 goes into 10 twice, so you get 0.2. Now to convert 0.2 into a decimal, move the decimal 2 places to the right and you would get 20%. Okay, letter F, you have 1 out of how many total pieces? Let's see, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you have 1 out of 10 parts shaded in. So remember, 1/10 is 0.1 from the first lesson in the module. And then if you want to convert 1/10 into a decimal, move the decimal point 2 places to the right and you get 10%. Okay, number 1, use a bar model to represent 3/4 of a whole. So draw a rectangular bar model, and 3/4, that means there's going to be 4 total parts. So break up your bar model into 4 total parts, and then 3 of those parts are shaded in. So shade in 3 out of the 4 parts. Okay. Number 2, you want to draw a bar model for 3/5. So try to make it the same size as you did before. And now we take the exact same bar model and we break it into 5 parts. And then we're going to shade in 3 out of those 5 parts. Okay. Now to represent 3/10, draw the same bar model. Try to make it the same size. And now we're going to break our bar model into tenths. So I would break it into fifths and then break each fifth in half. And then shade in 3 out of those 10 parts. So there's 3/10. Notice in the fractions that we have here, they all have the same numerator. 3/4, 3/5, 3/10. So what you want to notice is that as the denominator gets larger, the fraction that we shade in starts getting smaller. So even though the numerator might be the same, since the denominator is getting larger, the smaller the value of your fraction. Okay, so take a moment to write that down. So what you want to notice is when the numerator is the same and the denominator is getting larger, the value of the fraction gets smaller. Okay, so number 5, next question. It says you have a bag containing 100 marbles. The color of each marble is shown. So there's 16 red, 24 blue, 45 green, and 15 yellow. You want to add these up and make sure you get a total of 100. Okay, so it says here that there are 16 out of 100 red marbles, which reduces to 4 out of 25. Remember that percent means out of 100. So if there are 16 out of 100 red marbles, that means 16% of the marbles are red. Now for blue, there are 24 out of 100 blue marbles. So as a fraction, that would be 24 out of 100. And then you can reduce 24 out of 100. You can divide the numerator and denominator by 4, and you get 6 25ths. And remember that percent means out of 100, so that would be 24%. Okay, green marbles, there are 45 green marbles. So that means there's 45 out of 100 green marbles. Divide the numerator and denominator by 5, and you get 9/20. And remember, percent means out of 100, so it would be 45% of the marbles are green. For yellow, there are 15 out of 100 yellow marbles. So if we divide the numerator and denominator by 5, you get 3/20. And remember, percent means out of 100, so it means 15% of the marbles are yellow. orange. So in the list, there are no orange ones. Okay, none of the marbles are orange, so the probability of getting an orange marble is 0 out of 100, which is just 0, and that would be 0%. Okay, for red or blue, so look at how many marbles are red or blue. That would be 16 or 24. So what you want to do is add 16 and 24 together out of 100. So that would be 16 plus 24. That would be 40 out of 100. And if you divide the numerator and denominator by 20, you get 2/5. And remember, percent means out of 100, so you'd have 40% of the marbles are red or blue. Okay, the next question is asking you what fraction is red, blue, green, or yellow. So red, blue, green, or yellow, you would have to add those up. 16 plus 24 plus 45 plus 15 out of 100. So that's going to equal, if you add the numerator, you get 100 out of 100, which is 1 whole, or 1 out of 1. So 100% of the marbles are red, blue, green, or yellow. Suppose you have a bag with 300 red, blue, green, and yellow marbles that has the same probability of being drawn as the previous page. Find out how many of each color you will need. So if there's 16 out of 100 red marbles, how many would that be out of 300? So you want to see, what do you multiply 100 by to get 300? That would be 3. So multiply 16 times 3. So 3 times 6 is 18. So you get 48 out of the 300 marbles would be red. Okay, for blue, you have 24 out of 100 that are blue. So how many marbles would be blue out of the 300? 100 times 3 is 300. So multiply 24 times 3 to figure out how many of the 300 would be blue. So that would be 72 out of 300. For green marbles, 45 out of 100 marbles are green. So how many out of 300 are green? Multiply 100 times 3. So 45 times 3. You can do that on the side. 3 times 5 is 15. 3 times 4 is 12. So that'd be 13. So 135 out of the 300 marbles are green. For yellow, 15 out of the 100 marbles are yellow. So how many out of the 300 are yellow? 100 times 3 is 300. So multiply 15 times 3 and you get 45. So 45 out of the 300 marbles would be yellow. So this concludes lesson 5.2a.